this is Aaron Ryanpin. I just want to thank you for joining me on this video today. I hope it inspires you, it builds hope, and it also gives you a perspective and knowledge of who God really is. Enjoy. So today, I want to talk to you today about the topic of Jesus and religion, part 2. Because the reason I want to talk to you about this is because I don't think I can explain everything in just one video, which is about 5 to 6 minutes long. But I feel like this topic is just so broad and so vast that one video is not enough, and so I decided to make another video. I was inspired to do another video, so I will continue to talk to you on the topic of Jesus and religion and explain to you, break it down, what is Jesus or what is God, and what religion really is. And so before we get into that, I just want to share with you a story that really changed my perspective and changed my life too. And so it goes like this. So once upon a time in ancient in the land of Israel, so there was a man that lived, and he had 2 sons. So the younger son comes to his father and he says, "I want my share of the estate now before you die." And so it was really disrespectful for the son to ask the father, because the father was not dead yet. And so the father agrees to his son's request, and he grants the property to both his sons because he had 2 sons. And so a few days later, the younger son sold his share of the property and moved to a distant country, and there he just wasted his money, wasted his life on, in wild living, doing things, drinking, partying, having sex. He wasted his money in wild living. And so when his money ran out, guess what? Coincidentally, a great famine swept over the land. And so he got a local farmer to hire him to feed the pigs, because a famine swept the land. There was no food anywhere. And so when the local farmer hired him, he longed to eat the husks that he fed the pigs, but no one gave him anything. And so we see when he finally, sitting down there pondering, when he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, "At home, even my hired servants have food to spare, but I here sit hungry." And so he thought to himself, and he's like, "When I go back home, this is what I must tell my father. Father, I have sinned against heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son." And so he goes on to request, "Take me on as your hired servant." So he returned to his father, and so while he was on the way to his father's house, his father sees him from a distance, and guess what? His father comes running down and immediately grabs his son and starts hugging him and kissing him and telling him how much he loves him. And the son starts, saying out the things that he had planned to tell his father. He's like, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and you. I am not worthy. Hire me as your servant." But the father didn't pay one attention to what he was saying. Immediately, he commanded the servants to bring the calf and kill the fattened calf. My son is returned, and we need to celebrate. And he makes this clear statement: "My son that was lost is now found," and so we must celebrate. And so while the feast was going on, we see that his older brother that was in the field right now comes back to the house. And when he's going, he's like, "What's all the party going on? What is going on?" And one of the servants reports to him that, "Hey, your brother that was lost is now returned. And so your father has asked us to cut the fattened calf and celebrate, for he was lost and now he is found." And we see the story. It says that the older son immediately got furious. And so when he got furious, the father went outside to talk to the older brother. And this is what he said. This is what the older son says: "All these years I've worked for you, I've slaved for you, and obeyed all your commands. You never gave me anything. And this son, when he went out and spent all his money on prostitutes and wild living, you hired the servants to cut a fattened calf for him?" And he's furious, but the father responds. He responds to something so crazy that'll blow your mind. He says, "Son, you have always been with me. Everything that I have is yours. And we had to celebrate, for your brother was dead and now has come back to life. He was once lost and now he is found." And so this story is one of the most profound stories I've come across that took place in ancient Egypt. And so some of the lessons I want to talk to you about from this story about Jesus and religion, or God and religion, the difference between it. Well, those are some of the principles that I learned and grew, and so I just want to share it with you. You see, with the younger son, I can so relate with the younger son, that lost his way, went and rebelled, disobedient to parents, party, like wasted time in wild living and did all of that. I can so relate to him. And I'm pretty sure there's people out there that can relate to him too. There was a phase in life where we all had that point. And 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 so it's just my heart goes towards that person, and I can literally feel myself in his shoes. And so one such incident is like, I want to break down religion and relationship based on this story. You see, religion, in the definition of, I have to live up to a certain set of rules and standards in order to have a right living with God, is not right. It invalidates your identity of who you are, because of the wrong you did, because of the sin you committed. Like the story we see, he began to think about what he should say to his father. He said, Father, I have sinned against heaven and you. Please take me back as your hired servant. You see, religion invalidates your identity because of something wrong that you did or because of the sin you committed. Whereas relationship, on the other end, it isn't about what you can do in order to have right standing with God. It is about accepting the fact that what God did for you so that you can have a right standing with Him. And so religion, it breaks your identity, it invalidates your identity, whereas relationship, it builds your identity, restores your identity of who you are. And so I'm gonna just keep going to like certain points that I take up from this story. And the next point would be, really, when I say relationship, I indirectly refer to God, or metaphorically am representing God. So relationship always receives you with love and compassion, no matter what you've done, no matter where you're at, as long as you're willing to return. You see, when the son decided to say, all right, I gotta go back, I have to return back to my father, when he decided that, his father received him with arms wide open in love and compassion. And another point is that relationship, which is God, doesn't even pay attention to what you've done, because because the relationship is so obsessed with the fact that you return, with the fact that you're there, with the fact that you're willing to turn away, that it doesn't even matter, what you have to say. It doesn't even look on what you've done, because it's so obsessed with who you are. It's so obsessed with the fact that you return. Because we see the father say that, bring the finest robes and cut the fattened calf, my son has returned, we have to celebrate. Does it make sense? So like, religion sees your past, religion defines you by who you are, but whereas relationship, it always receives you with love and compassion, with arms wide open, as long as you're willing to return. And it's not obsessed with the fact of what you've done, but it's obsessed with the fact that you have returned. And so another point would be, relationship restores you back to the fullness of who you were created to be. You see, he began to think to himself, Father, I've sinned against heaven and you. Take me back as your hired servant. But no, his father took him back and restored him back to the original position by commanding the servants to bring and clothe him and cut the fattened calf. It not only accepted him, but it also restored him back to the fullness of who he was created to be as a son. And the last point I want to talk to you about is, you see, religion bases identity or rewards on what I can do externally or what I've done externally, and compares with the rest of the world, compares with the people around you, compares with friends and family. But you see, relationship always, and it always celebrates without comparison of external behaviors. It always celebrates, no matter where you're at, no matter what position you're in, it always celebrates you. And so I just want to break that down for you, giving you the distinction between a relationship and what religion is. Religion in the rightest form, don't get me wrong, I'm all for religion when it's in the rightest form. But when I have to live up to certain values and standards in order to have right standing with God, that's when I have a problem. That's when millions of other people out there have a problem, and that's where Jesus himself has a problem. He came not to fulfill religion, but he came to abolish religion and fulfill the law. And so that's why we got to keep our minds on. So when we begin to live our lives relationship based and not values, and not set of rules, not set of principle based, then trust me, this world would be such a better place. And so yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment in the sections below. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, God bless you.